Professor and political analyst Mohammad Marandi. Thanks for speaking to us. How dangerous a situation is this right now in Baghdad? And how reminiscent is it for you of what happened in Tehran 40 years ago at the U.S. Embassy there?
Well, I think there are a number of important things that we have to keep in mind. And the most important thing is that the United States violated Iraqi sovereignty and made the Iraqi government look ineffective and incapable of defending its own people when the Americans murder tens of Iraqi soldiers on the Syrian border, and some of them inside Syria, in order to enhance ISIS and to create a wedge between Syria and Iraq so that Syria can't carry out trade. I think that the Iraqi population that turns the Iraqi population against its own government, and obviously it creates great hostility towards the U.S. government for killing its citizens and its heroes with impunity. And the interesting thing is that the Americans, when Iranian consulate buildings are attacked in Iraq, Western pundits and Western media and Western government officials say it's the will of the Iraqi people. But when Iraqis are outraged by the crimes committed by the U.S. armed forces at the behest of the U.S. government in Iraq against its citizens, against its war heroes, then they say it's orchestrated in Tehran. So the narrative in the West, while irrational and is I think, dangerous because it creates further miscalculation. Unless the United States sets aside its arrogance and begins to respect Iraqi sovereignty, then you'll see what happened in Iran, 40 years ago, repeated in Iraq today.
Iraq and Iraqi sovereignty, because many Iraqis are also outraged, to use the word that you used, by Iran's presence and what they see as Iran's meddling and interference in Iraqi affairs. So it's not as if there's good guys on one side and not the other. There's an issue with Iran and its actions in Iraq as well.
No, I don't agree with that. I think there are the good guys. The good guys are the guys who went into Iraq 3 or 4 years ago when the Americans helped create the monster that we see as ISIS, the Saudis, the Americans, and other neighbors of Iraq and Syria. And they almost overtook the country. And Iran sent its forces into the country. Many were killed in the fighting to defend Iraq.
Then why did Iraqis attack Iranian
interests? Iraq as we speak.
Why did Iraqi protesters?
Yet the Americans.
Why have Iraqi protesters been protesting outside Iran's consulate?
That's the point that I'm making. That's exactly the point I'm making. When a few hundred people in Iraq, or a few thousand people in Iraq, protest against Iran, many Iraqis belong to the previous regime, the Ba'athist regime under Saddam Hussein. And many are supported by, we have well over 1,000 NGOs in Iraq funded by the United States. So the role that Western powers, the Saudis, the Emiratis, are playing in Iraq is quite clear for everyone. At the end of the day, it's the Americans who destroyed Iraq. They created Saddam Hussein, gave him chemical weapons to use against even his own people. Then they created they invaded the country. Before that, there were years where the country was under sanctions, and over 1 million people died as a result of U.S. policy in Iraq. So I don't think the Americans or Westerners are in any position to compare the Iranian role, where the Iranians helped Iraq against ISIS, and the American role, where they destroyed the country and they continue to occupy the country today. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad is the largest embassy in the world. It is the embassy of an occupier, not a friend.
Okay, Mohammad Marandi, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you as always for joining us from Tehran.